Welcome to Biz Dev Live. I am so excited to bring you 1031 Rob today. This man is incredible. We're going to get into it. All of the branding. We're going to talk about his military background that you may not have known about. We're going to talk about how he is an informational hub. We're going to bring it all together for you. Stay tuned right after the Biz Dev theme.
Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T.
Known as 1031 Rob to most, Robert M. Pecha is a member of Great Point Capital, LLC, which is a boutique alternative investment firm specializing in securitized real estate offerings. More specifically, Robert helps investors navigate their 1031-like kind exchanges. This helps the investor defer capital gains tax on the sale of their investment property. While 1031s are great, they're not always the easiest thing to execute successfully. Robert is able to take clients through the entire 1031 process with a modular and customizable portfolio of eligible properties, offering 1031 solutions to 1031 problems. Robert takes great pride in helping his clients make purposeful and confident investment decisions. Rob, thanks for being on the show today.
Cam, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor.
All right, brother. So talk to us about, I said a lot of words in that introduction there, and I'm glad I got it all out. The 1031 exchanges are a little bit of a complicated thing, and I want to sort of save that for the end of the show. Suffice it to say, you help people do some amazing things with investments, and I want to sort of highlight that. And I know you're involved in some different things. I talked a little bit as we were launching this thing, the informational hub, the fact that you're branding yourself. So talk to us a little bit about kind of some of the things that you're doing right now, just this state of place, and then we will go into your background, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into 1031 exchanges and all that a little bit.
Sure. Sounds like a plan, Cam, and thanks again for having me. So where do I start? 2020, interesting year for all of us, right? And I think the word that we keep hearing most often is pivot. That and unmute yourself. So pivot keeps coming up, and pivot we have. Wow, pivot we have. So since the pandemic hit early on, I met this gentleman, Sean Lashley, who Cam, you know very well. Our good friend Steve Spiro knows very well. And
wait. I got to say this. Mr. Sean Lashley,
aka 10K Sean.
Yes, indeed.
So we all know him very well, and I met him very early on in the pandemic, and I realized that this guy had a vision, and the vision was this: that okay, COVID says we can't meet and shake hands and have lunches anymore. Fine, but you still have to find that creative touch. You still have to be able to connect with your clients. You still have to keep your conversations going with your COIs, and you still got to get your brand and your face out there. So how do you do that? How do you do that in a COVID environment? Well, he found a clever way. He created this digital business card. You carry one, I carry one. Many of our good friends do as well. It's another clever touch. It's not the be all and end all. It doesn't replace what we do in our day to day, but it's another clever way to get out there. And I think the theme for me in 2020.
And I'm just going to display mine. I can probably throw yours up on the screen in a minute as well. But just this idea that you can hold your phone up. So anybody that's watching this right now, get your phone out, because I'm about to throw Rob's up in just a minute, and get ready. Look, he's got his ready to go. But I'll throw the one. I got the fancy one with the picture, so I'll throw it up there in a minute.
There you go. So always ready to go. But yeah, so the theme for 2020, and I learned very quickly, is you can't stick your head in the sand. Some people had the mentality like, all right, we'll kind of wait till the storm passes and then we'll resume business as usual. You can't do that. You can't do that because we have to plant the seeds for 2021, which we all have these very high expectations for. and we're going to be so happy when this is behind us. But you got to plant those seeds. You got to keep doing what you're doing. So Sean was a helpful way to do that. He also encouraged me to get out there on the other socials. I used to just strictly be a LinkedIn guy. For years and years, I've only been LinkedIn. I never bought into the Facebook or the Instagram. I was like, well, what's the point? It doesn't really matter to me who saw what movie or who moved to what house. But Sean also opened my eyes up to that. He said, you know what, you're cutting yourself off from a marketing standpoint, because though you market yourself as a 1031 guy to investors, some of their kids may be on these channels and you're missing out on those opportunities. So it was basically the missing part of the puzzle that the COVID environment allowed me to focus on. Was this, Sean was like, you're a great guy, you're an honest guy, you got a military background, you're good at what you do. Only missing piece is we got to make you a celebrity, right? So I embarked on that journey aggressively with him, and it's been a lot of fun ever since. And just building that out, and this environment, being inside more and having to kind of focus on the marketing piece and doing things like BizDev Live and engaging in things like that, it's just build up that brand better and better for me.
I love that. And I think that's going to be very helpful to a lot of people, because that idea of brand, I spoke to a couple of people just today doing the one-on-ones. Maybe you can talk to this a little bit later as well, but the power of just the one-on-one meetings, getting to know people's stories, getting into it, finding those common connections. I know you were talking about being the information hub and how that connects you to a lot of people. And I'm finding that to be very true, that, I don't necessarily need business from this person directly, but they may know some people, or the fact that I'm helping them, I don't know if that's going to pay off in dividends down the line. And I'm having so much fun with the networking side. It really isn't, at the end of the day, the point of it. I'm creating a lot of activity, and there's some purpose behind the activity. So I'm confident that it will bring dividends, but the actual impact with other human beings is really wonderful. So
I think it's twofold. If I could just jump in and piggyback on that. So yeah, it's almost like the 1031 stuff, it's there. It's what I do professionally, but it's almost like in the networking efforts, I've been shelving that somewhat, because I really haven't been highlighting that. It's more been about the informational hub. And because I do a lot of networking, I'm able to be a resource to COIs and clients alike. And that just expands as I do more of it. And the second piece to that, and it's equally as crucial, is the story, right? Angie Legg was recently on a call that we did, and she highlighted the story, said we all have one. So being able to highlight that in tandem with building this informational hub and being a resource to people, and whether that's clients or COIs, doesn't matter. But the last thing I ever want to tell people, Cam, is, well, I only do 1031. So if it's not 1031, don't ask me. That's not me. I want to be a resource to people in any way I can. You need a great dentist, a doctor, whatever you're looking for, even if it's outside of my world, I want to be able to point you to somebody good. So being a informational hub and telling the story at the same time, it equates to a lot of fun. And as you said, it will probably monetize down the line, but you don't lead with that. Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been giving that example lately because people do have that approach, and we can pick on Mr. Sean Lashley a little bit, in that, because I was giving him a hard time in the BizDev Live networking program that I run. Dude, you're all sales, and you're not giving anybody any entryways. You're not telling your story. You're not being vulnerable and letting people in. And we had a great, after I had given him that hard time, we had a great call. And not only did we have a blast, me and him, but we actually had all of my family come, because he can get your birthday and basically understand your personality from it, call it numerology, whatever. But he's got a special talent with it. And my wife, who is like afraid of, I don't want to say afraid, she does not want to be on camera. If folks are looking to see my wife, you're not likely to see her. You might see a Facebook photo, but you're not. She was hearing his personal touches on, or his takes on the personality of the kids. And she was like, that, like it was right. And it was like all right. And now suddenly we're all on there. So, just a testament to, like, once you get beyond like your sales pitch, how much impact you can have. My family, Sean Lashley is in my 12-year-old's letter to Santa. Oh, wow. He's like, all right, dude. All right. You've infiltrated. Like, that's crazy. All right. So speaking of stories, right, this is the opportunity. And just before you get into it, because I definitely want to give you some time and give you the floor, I just want to shout out Linda Ray and Trevor. They like the unmute. Yeah, that is the 2020 theme song. You're on mute, right?
Charlotte, thank you for tuning in. Connection is awesome. Listening is key. And Charlotte says, I love ending my elevator speech with, who do you know? It was a great lesson from Lisa Nichols, and I have used it ever since. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. And now I will cede the floor to 1030 Rob. Tell us, because I want to hear, first of all, like you have the military background. So how did that all happen? And then how did that affect, where you are in the world? Obviously, you're a people person, and I wonder if that was something that was always natural or not. And how did you get interested in finance? Did that come from the military, or was that something from before? So hopefully I've set it up really well for you. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you guys on a journey. We're gonna go half a lifetime back for me. And to answer your questions, no, I didn't always have an interest in finance. I had no idea that one was coming. And I wasn't always comfortable in front of the camera, much like your wife. I wouldn't be found anywhere near it. But here I am. So let me tell you how that happened. 1031 Rob. I wasn't always 1031 Rob. Going half a lifetime back, and I'm probably dating myself now. You'll find many people will find that I'm older than they think I am, because they usually peg me younger. But back in the late 90s, I was graduating high school, and I had one aspiration coming out of high school. I said, you know what? My parents were both immigrants from what was former Czechoslovakia in 1968. I want to do something for my country. I want to do something kind of cool, but I want to have fun doing it. The only school I applied to coming out of high school was the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. My guidance counselor said, hey, Rob, pick a backup school. That school is really hard to get into, just in case you don't make it. I was like, no, I'm going. So I run and gun for that, and only that. And I ended up getting the primary congressional nomination from Susan Molinari back then, among 16 other candidates. And that's where I went. And I had aspirations to fly the F-117 stealth fighter and drop bombs on the enemy. That's what I wanted to do for the country. And that's kind of how I wanted to give back for my parents that came here with nothing and in search of the American dream. So I'm at the academy. I'm a rock star over there, great GPA. I'm on the drill team. I'm an aeronautical engineering major, studying to be. And I'm there in my second year. And during my second year, my vision went south. And by south, not bad. I still don't even wear contacts. My vision's great. But I developed a slight depth perception problem while I was there during my second year. And basically what happened is I was no longer pilot qualified, and I was no longer navigator qualified. So it's like, here I was like very one-track minded, wanted to fly, a stealth fighter to protect the country. And suddenly it was like, the rug was pulled out from underneath me. It's like, okay, now you can't do that anymore. And this was, again, I'm dating myself, late 90s. You couldn't get laser surgery if you wanted to fly the plane or wash it. Didn't matter. It disqualified you from all Air Force programs. So at that point, in my second year, I had a choice. It was like, okay, do you stay and wait and hope that the surgery evolves and the United States Air Force allows it? Or do you pick something else? So I took that opportunity to pivot, as we all have in 2020. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna do something else. I speak a bunch of languages, I'll figure it out. Long story short, I got my degree from Georgetown University in international business. And I spent a little bit of time and energy after college, sort of just trying that sector. But then I found my way into financial services in 2008. Interesting year to start finance, right? And finally, fast forward to today, I'm 1031 Rob. So I started in 2008 in finance. Basically, since then, I tried different disciplines as a financial advisor. I didn't love any of them. But then here I am today. I found something pretty unique. And though I'm not dropping bombs on the enemy, I'm kind of saving the planet in a different way, in a very, very specific way. So though that didn't work out for me, it's kind of interesting because I look at how I run my practice now as a straight shooter, as an ex-military guy, and I lived by an honor code way back when, back in the late 90s. Every day, we will not lie, cheat or steal or tolerate among us anyone who does. I've ported that into my practice now. That's the cornerstone of how I run my business and how I run my personal and professional life. So it's kind of interesting looking back and saying, okay, people ask me this all the time, Cam, if you knew the outcome, if you had a crystal ball and you knew how this was going to pan out for you, that the dream of flight would not have worked out for you back then, would you still have gone down that route? My answer is always absolutely. Absolutely, because I've ported things from that experience that money can't buy, that you just don't find anymore. So it never would have lent itself to the path that I'm on had I not done it. And I value every experience I've had in it. I value having that in my background because that, as I said, is the cornerstone of how I run my practice today. And as far as being comfortable on camera and being a people person, that developed in time. That did not come overnight. I was a regimented guy, right? I was
Yeah, I was
ex-military.
just going to ask you how many years you were in the military, and then what that immediately led to, like when you got out. What was the? Because I know I've sort of talked about this before. As you get out of the military, civil society isn't necessarily designed for a vet's success.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, I was absolutely crushed because it was the only thing I wanted to do. I was very one-track minded, so I didn't know what else I wanted to do. And the idea of transitioning to the civil life was like, I didn't know. I had no idea. I really had no idea. Besides military aviation and being on that path, what else would I go into? I really didn't know. But that's why I went the route of Georgetown. I said, let me get my degree from a great institution, and I speak a few languages. I'm multilingual, so I'll figure it out. I really went into the world blind, but I said, you know what? I have a great pedigree behind me, and I'll figure it out. And I literally went into the world with that attitude, like I will figure it out.
That's amazing. And then how many? So you've mentioned a couple of times that you speak languages. What languages do you speak?
So my parents are from what was a Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, which is now the Czech Republic and Slovakia. So I grew up with those. Those are like household languages. My grandfather lived with us.
So English, Czech,
Slovak, and French. I'm pretty proficient in. I got as high as business level French in college. So French I'm pretty good at. And German I like conversational, and I get around.
Yeah, just 4.5, 5.5 languages. No big deal. I like how you're pretty nonchalant about it. I know English and I can get by in Spanish, and I'm happy with that.
I feel like I should have picked up Spanish because that would have been helpful sometimes. But there are some benefits. So my wife is of a Polish background and she speaks Polish fluently. That happens to be very close to Slovak. So whenever we get involved with grandmas and stuff, that's pretty helpful.
Well, I imagine it helps the business because you have contacts that you can probably help in a unique way, as opposed to some other folks that might not be able to help some folks out. I loved listening to Barbara Corcoran's story and how she brought people into her office that they had the Chinese person that was proficient in Mandarin and brought all those contacts in their business. I know it can be very, very helpful to be able to communicate. I wish I could speak every language because I can't get enough of talking. So I'm just like looking for more excuses to talk to people. So it's a really nice thing. I'm always jealous when somebody speaks more than the language and a half that I speak. So it's very cool. All right. So what was that transition life into really? I know you went to school, did the Georgetown thing. So what was kind of your perception of what you were going to do and how did you find finance?
So I found finance. So again, coming out of my schooling, I immediately went into energy. So I have an energy background. I worked for an energy consulting firm, spent a little bit of time at Con Edison in marketing and sales. It was just haphazard. I happened to find that, post-college through my friend's brother who had a connection there. And my attitude was like, I'll accept anything. I'll try anything. I'll throw myself out into the world and find my place because it's no longer as a military aviator. It's got to be something else. And I need to figure that out. And I need to figure that out pretty quickly. So I tried that, and energy was good. I like the premise of energy. Everybody uses it. Everybody needs it. It needs to be efficient. It needs to be clean. That's the future. So that was a fun space to be in, but I didn't really love it. And then in 2008, I had a friend that worked for a firm called AXA, and he was on a great team, and he loved it. He said he was on one of the top 2% teams in the country, and it was intriguing to me. And I was open to a change. It's not like I didn't like what I do, but I wasn't in love with it. So I sort of took the plunge and I said, yeah, let me try that. Nobody wants to be left with I'm not sure, right? You want to at least give it a shot. You don't want to have it linger in the back of your head and say, woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? That game sucks. So I dove into it again, not really knowing, was I going to be a specialist? Was I going to be a money manager? What was I going to do? So again, I tried different disciplines. I did the life insurances. I did the pension max. I did the portfolio maximization, all types of different things. And sort of went through the motions, didn't love any of them, just tried them.
I love as you're going through this, because I think there's a lot of people that are, and this is where I think we can provide some value. So if there's some insight from these different things, and I think 1031 Rob, right? You are, I don't know that you find a whole lot of other people. I imagine because you do what you do, you find them because you're searching and whatnot, but I can't imagine that you're just bumping into folks in networking events that are all super familiar with 1031.
Yeah, not often. I focus on certain COIs or centers of influence that touch these transactions more naturally. But for me, it's been just more, telling my story and being that informational hub to people. And naturally, those clients will find me through referrals. So it's been more about that. But yeah, I definitely wasn't always 1031 Rob. That was definitely a journey. Again, beginning with the military, which was completely different, and then sort of trying different things in energy and then trying different things in finance. Finally, in 2012, after trying these different disciplines, I came across this specialty. And at that point, I realized, you know what? This is kind of different. This is a different conversation. There aren't too many people doing it. There are even fewer people that are like me that just do this, and they're a one-trick pony, but they're proud to be a one-trick pony. And it's very underserved. So I said, you know what? This is something I can run with. And again, I was green to it in 2012. So I had other affiliations with different groups, and you have to get comfortable with it first. You don't learn it overnight. You certainly are not comfortable with it overnight. So it took me some time, but finally, I was doing it since 2012 under different affiliations. Finally, in 2018, I turned a corner. In 2018, I turned 40. A week prior to that, we had our first daughter, Madison. So I was a dad now. It was a different feeling. And it's like suddenly, I don't know, it's like mediocrity wasn't okay anymore. I had to put my big boy pants on, and it was like, you know what? This 1031 Rob thing, it kind of started as a joke. But when I realized that people were calling me that from across Madison Avenue, and from when I have a broker in the front of the 4 train and I'm at the back of that car and he's like, hey, 1031 Rob, I was like, I'm on to something. So it was sticky. And it was like, you know what? You're a dad now. It's time to build your own practice, put your big boy pants on. So I just kind of turned a corner. And here I am.
I love that. So what I was getting at before was, so you did all these financial products, and 1031 is the one that sort of stuck for you, that you found the most affinity with. So I'm kind of looking for, what really stood out to you for 1031 exchanges that was really positive and something that you wanted to delve deeper in, and why did some of the other financial products that you sort of got into? Because I think this, talks to career exploration. It talks to, finding your niche, finding the thing that you enjoy most. And a lot of times people are, somewhere, and they could be somewhere else, but they haven't even, tasted, right? They haven't been out and explored and said, well, maybe this financial product over here, or this kind of thing, I sell this kind of insurance, but maybe I want to do this insurance, and they just haven't tried it, right? So how did you sort of try some different things? What was your experience of that? And why did finally 1031 stand out from some of these other financial products that you had been working with and developing?
Sure. And it's a good question, Cam. And it's something I've thought about a lot. Like, why did I settle down with 1031 and versus I walked away from life insurance and annuities and all these other things that did. Not that there's anything wrong with those products. I'm really happy that there are people that run their practices around those things, because we need those products in our lives. So there's definitely value there, but I just didn't love the inner mechanics of it. As far as this 1031 space, it's one-dimensional, which I kind of like. I'm not really a weeds guy. I like keeping things concept, and I'm more about relationships and not too much getting into the granular. But it's one-dimensional. I mean, I can literally boil this down into 4 categories of people that I can help, and it solves a couple of problems. It's not for everybody. I'm the first to say that. I'm not a one-size-fits-all, but that fits into my my military background and being a straight shooter. 9 times out of 10, I'll talk myself out of the deal. But that's just how linear this is and how specific my audience that I'm targeting is. So when I realized that it's like that, it's one-dimensional, and then how few people are out there that are doing this, I said, you know what, this is something I can run with. This 1031 Rob name, again, it started as a joke. It was just a moniker I started using for myself. But when I realized how sticky it was, and more importantly, when I realized how sticky it was, and people didn't even know why, like for the right reason, they didn't even associate it with a 1031. There are plenty of people that remember me as 1031 Rob, or better yet, put me in here as 1031 Rob, and not even knowing my last name. That's why I started phasing it out. And they don't even know what that is. It doesn't matter, because the weirdest things have happened. I have a buddy in the automotive industry. He runs an auto repair shop. He had a guy come in. The guy had a flat tire. I started talking to him about 1031 something or other. My buddy goes, I've known this guy since kindergarten. He goes, you should talk to my friend Rob. He goes, who's your friend Rob? He said, I don't know. He calls himself 1031 Rob. You just mentioned 1031. Have a conversation. This guy was doing a 1031 transaction, which I'll get into more later about the mechanics of what that is. Now, here's my buddy. He runs a tire shop. I promise you, if we call him right now and call him out, he still has no idea what I do. But he remembered me in the context of those four numbers. This was a guy who ended up doing a transaction. So once I realized that, in tandem with the fact that there aren't many of us doing this, and this 1031 Rob thing is sticky, and yeah, even if you don't remember it for the right reason, it could still turn into business. I'm like, this is good. This is good. And I'm a dad now. I'm going to run with this. So it just like all kind of came together. And looking back 20 years and my experience with that, I'm like, that all lent itself to this. So it's kind of interesting in this anomaly of a year we've had. I just had like this epiphany, and it just kind of hit me all at once that it was supposed to go this route.
I love it. And I think that marketing and branding message gives a lot of value, because whether it's, Biz Dev Live, Cameron, or whatever your thing is out in the world, to understand, how to market yourself, how to sort of embrace that, right? If somebody gives you a nickname, maybe it's like, oh, they're doing you a favor because they're going to show you how to market yourself, right? So being open to that. And I love how you were open to it. And ran with it. So talk to us about 1031 exchanges. What are the ins and outs? Who are the people that are most likely to be your customer, so that people kind of know how to tune into this? But you talked about the simpleness of the process, the fact that it's not deep in the weeds. So who are we talking about? What is a 1031, and who should be doing this?
Okay, sure. So 1031s, for those of you who don't know, and again, it doesn't matter to me, for our audience, if you remember exactly what it is or not, just associate me with 1031. That's all I want. That's my objective. But for those of you who do know, who are in the real estate space, now real estate attorneys, CPAs, residential and commercial brokers, they will all know what this thing called a 1031 is. The 1031 exchange is a real estate code. It's basically an IRS code that came about, started in 1921. And it was a means for farmers to swap horses and land. And the idea is they call it a like-kind exchange. It allows you to sell something held for investment purposes and move into something else held for investment purposes. The idea is you keep money in motion, and by doing so, you defer the capital gains tax. So people like it. Since 1921, the definition has dramatically expanded. And when they say like-kind exchange, it doesn't literally mean like-kind. So if you're selling a warehouse, you don't need to literally move into a warehouse to qualify. It just needs to be something held for investment purposes. So let's just use the example of somebody selling a brownstone in Brooklyn that they rent out. We'll just use that as a simple example. If that person goes to sell the brownstone today, everybody on the planet pretty much knows that they have two options. They can sell that brownstone and pay the tax to Uncle Sam. He loves that. Or they can do this thing called a 1031 exchange that chances are their real estate attorney or CPA was telling them to do. I'm a third option. I'm a third option that a lot of people don't know that they have. In 2004, which not like it was yesterday, it was a few years back, they created this structure, and it says that anything packaged up as a Delaware Statutory Trust or DST hits my menu, and it's like kind. So what does that mean? That means everything on my menu is 1031 approved and ready to go. And I'm essentially the third option people don't know that they have, and I'm good in 4 specific scenarios. And here we go. I told you I'm one-dimensional. I like to keep it simple. The first category is somebody, let's say maybe somebody a little older in their 60s, 70s. They've owned the property forever. They bought it for next to nothing in the 60s or the 70s. Now it has a ton of appreciation. So they're going to sell this brownstone. Again, I'm using the example of a brownstone. It has a ton of appreciation. The 1031 is probably attractive because there's big capital gains there, and probably depreciation, recapture, and other elements as well. A lot of these folks are saying, yeah, that's cool. I want to do the 1031. I don't want to pay the tax on the sale of my investment property. But a lot of them are also saying, like, I don't want to be a landlord again or deal with the tenants, the toilets, and the trash. Many of them just don't want to deal with that aspect anymore. These programs are great. They're 100% passive. You literally hand over control to a professional property management company. You let them run it for you. You check out, you go play golf, you go skiing. Just put on autopilot, collect that mailbox money, let it ride out. And then hopefully on the back end, you get your initial investment back plus your share of any appreciation.
So let me stop, because I want to make sure I understand this. So you were saying in the beginning, you have basically 2 options and then your third option. So your first option, you sell it, you bank the money, you pay your taxes. The second option, I think you said the second option was a 1031, but you're 1031 Rob. So explain the difference between the second and third option, right? And then what I thought I just heard was one of the things that you can do is take the property and basically sell it to a property management company. And so you're just exchanging I didn't understand. So you got
Yeah, so let me clarify. I'm glad you pointed that out. So, okay, going back, everybody knows they could pay the tax to Uncle Sam, or they could do this thing called a 1031 like-kind exchange. I piggyback on the 1031 exchange as a third option that most people don't know that they have. And I help in 4 very specific ways. So again, I have a prepackaged menu, if that's what you want to call it, of 1031 approved products. They come in all shapes and sizes. They're highly modular. So we have all different types of offerings. We have retail, we have multifamily, student housing, industrial. That's what I mean when I say they come in all shapes and sizes. And they're all over the country. But at the end of the day, every single thing on this menu is professionally run and managed by a property management company. And for the investor, it's hands off. So in that first category of investor that I can help, I mentioned the ones that don't want to deal with the tenants, the toilets, and the trash. Those people love this because it's hands off. You know, you literally, you satisfy your exchange, you get into it, you earn a decent rate of return on your money, and you just throttle back. So that's the first category.
Let me see if I understood this. So I'm processing right. So what I do is I sell my property, right? And instead of that money hitting my bank account, that's transitioned to another property that's already set up to be managed by a managed company. So I own the property and there's a management company already in place managing that property. So I have the passive income from it.
Correct. And you don't need to do that to satisfy a 1031. Again, it's just an option. I'm an option. The 1031 says when you sell that property, again, I'm using the example of a brownstone, you need to move into something called like kind. So it can be another brownstone that you manage. It can be a warehouse. It could be these. You have options. But that's why I say it always comes down to the profile of the investor, because again, I'm not for everybody. I'm an option if you check one of 4 boxes.
All right. So that first box was that senior citizen that doesn't want to do the trash and all that stuff. So what's the second?
Tenants, toilets, trash. Just remember that. That's the first one. And that's the most common one, by the way. The second one is, I call it the 45-day insurance policy. It's getting more into the mechanics of a 1031, which I don't want to spend a lot of time on, but there is something inside of a 1031. It's a rule. It's a timeline that says after you sell that brownstone, you have 45 days to identify what you want to roll those proceeds into. You know, will it be something on here? Will it be something out there? You only have 45 days. That ends up being problematic for investors for 2 reasons. They either procrastinate, they just think 45 days is a lot of time, and then they run out at the end. And if you mess this up, it derails the whole exchange and you owe the tax. It's like you never did it. Or they put all their eggs in one basket. And then beyond the 45th day, something weird happens. You know, the seller puts language in the contract and it, again, unravels the whole thing. I'm good as a backup. So I like to tell people that as you get close to the end of that 45-day identification period, if you only have one, maybe name 1 or 2 as a backup. If you have nothing, it's certainly a good time to look at it, because these things are very easy to mess up. Because these programs are so modular and I have no closing risk, they're prepackaged with a nice big bow ready to go. You're not going to mess it up with me. The only question is this product right for you? So the second category is just an insurance policy, essentially. The third bucket is matching debt and equity. Again, it's an exchange rule that I don't want to get too much into because it's getting granular, but there are 2 components within a 1031 that you have to be conscious of. How much money do you have sitting in escrow to deploy after you sell that investment property? And then what type of mortgage, if any, have you retired at closing? Because that's something you have to match. You'll go into the same position or greater. It's called exchange up. So there's always 2 components that you have to consider, because if you fall behind on either, they'll hit you with the differential in terms of tax. The CPA usually knows what numbers you're targeting. It's a little annoying sometimes, to be honest, because you got 2 moving targets. Again, these are so modular and it's plug and play. I have different amounts of loan to value or LTV that are baked in at the sponsor level, not the investor level. So bucket 3 just means from those 2 requirements that are a requirement of a 1031 exchange, I can hit those numbers almost on the penny, whereas that's almost never heard of in a traditional exchange. If you go out there and try to find yourself, another brownstone or something, or another rental property, you're almost always going to be over, under, there's going to be some differential.
Right.
Because it's so modular, it's very, very easy for me to satisfy those
So you get an
requirements.
exact match on your money, so the numbers line up, and the accountants are very, very happy because the numbers match.
Exactly. For example, Cam, if a client's CPA came to me and said, "Hey, we need a 57% LTV position or loan to value mortgage, essentially, but by the way, my client doesn't have the best credit," no problem. I can go to the menu, find something that's at least 57% LTV, written at the sponsor level. The investor doesn't have to worry about it. It doesn't even show up on their credit.
And
So
break that word down for me, because you're talking to a guy that still rents, and I'm trying to level up in the world. So what are you talking about when you talk about sponsor level versus?
So the sponsors are just the property management companies that put these things together.
Gotcha.
So
Very,
going back to bucket three, whatever mortgage component and whatever equity they have to deploy out, again, I can hit those to the penny because these are so modular.
very cool. So now, thinking, well, I think you got a fourth bucket, right? So what's the fourth bucket?
The fourth bucket is just the scraps. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's exactly what our listeners are probably thinking it is. If you go out there and you do a traditional 1031 exchange, you find your own stuff in the allotted time, but you have some leftovers, I can deploy those leftovers into something a little more resilient in this environment, like a well-placed multifamily and industrial, self-storage, earn a decent rate of return on that money instead of just getting slapped with a tax. Because at that junction, no matter what the leftovers are, whether it's 100,000, half a
It
million,
doesn't have to be just one property; it could be multiple properties that you're
sure,
1031 exchanging.
sure. But just at that junction, if you have any leftover, don't let it get hit with the tax. Like, put it into something to earn you some money and have back end depreciation. It's just a better play.
Now I'm thinking about this, in terms of long term, right? Biz development. So somebody's, thinking about, I want to buy a building. There's going to be a lot of buildings that are vacant. A lot of people that, companies that have decided that they're not going to go back into the office. So there's going to be a lot of property, I think, for sale. We'll see that shift. We'll get into the roaring 20s. Other types of companies will come in and buy them. So it'll all be okay for folks that are invested in real estate. I don't think it's ever a bad investment. I love the quote. If you watch The Greatest Show with Hugh Jackman, and they're at the end of the movie and they're in New York, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's New York. Like, this property sucks." Like it's always going to go up. There's always going to be value, barring like nuclear fallout, right? I mean, and even then, wait 30 years and then the property is going to be crazy, right? So I think it's just one of those things that real estate's always a good investment. So for folks that are thinking long term here, right, they're going to buy a building, and they're going to invest in that, wherever they are in their life journey, whatever. How should people be thinking about setting themselves up to take advantage of these 1031 exchanges in the long run?
Sure, good question, Ken. So, as always with anything else, the more you can plan in advance, and the more informational gems you can pick up before you actually pull those triggers, the better. The 1031, some of our listeners may have heard that it's on the chopping block again, right? There's rhetoric about getting rid of it, neutering it a little bit, eliminating this stepped up cost basis. Basically, it's been threatened at least half a dozen times in recent decades. Again, it's been around since 1921, so it's withstood the test of time almost 100 years now. And it's done so for a reason. It creates jobs, it keeps money in motion. So it's a very powerful thing. It's a great tool to have. It's still around, and people are still taking advantage for it in this environment that they were decades and years prior. It keeps more of the money in your pocket working for you. So it's a tremendously powerful tool. Contrary to what some people think of it as, it's not a tax loophole for the wealthy. There are a lot of mom and pops across the country that take advantage of this code. Again, it was created to create jobs and keep money here in the United States for us. So it's a very great tool to take advantage of. The idea with any 1031, by the way, is it's tax deferral, as I mentioned before. So the idea with any 1031, whether I'm involved or not, so let's just take me off the table for a second and just say I'm not in the picture. You want to just keep rolling those proceeds. So the way some of the most wealthiest families in the country have built their wealth generationally is just rolling the proceeds. The idea with the 1031 is you roll the proceeds into something else down the line, and then again you're selling, you roll it into something else. So you just want to keep rolling that, and then the heirs of the investor actually get a stepped up cost basis, which means the taxes effectively go away. So it's a tremendously powerful wealth building tool. It's been around for a long time. So I would encourage people that aren't educated on it. You can certainly leverage me. I'm an educator. I tell people about this all day long because many people don't know what the 1031 is. Certainly, a lot of people don't know about the products that I offer, that they've been around since 2004. So I consider myself an educator. I'm kind of empowering people. I set them up for success. The people that know me really well, like Cam, they know I'm an informational hub. So I will help you in any way I can. Even if you don't check one of those 4 boxes I just gave you, and I know I'm out, because I am out a lot of times. As I said, I'm an option. I'm not for everybody. I will help you in any way I can. So if you need a great attorney that's well-versed in 1031, I'll help you. If you need a realtor that knows your area and can get you something that, price closer to what you're asking, I can help in that way as well. I don't do any of these things, but at the end of the day, the 1031 is like a symphony. You have a lot of people at the table trying to do the right thing for the client. I sit in one very specific seat, but I will help in any way that I can, all day, every day.
I love it. And are you able to operate in all 50 states? Are you able to operate internationally at all? Like who's sort of you in your sphere of clientele?
Sure, good question. So this 1031 applies to everybody in the United States. It doesn't apply internationally because this is a United States code, but anybody from coast to coast, I can help in the exact same way. If they're selling an investment property, they check one of those 4 boxes that I just gave. If they're entertaining a 1031, chances are I can give them an option they have not heard.
So as long as they're a citizen and they're working with U.S. property, this is a potential possibility for them.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, as you can imagine, I do 98% of the work in my own backyard, bouncing around the boroughs. I'm a Staten Island guy, for those of you who don't know, but the bulk of my work has been the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens.
That's awesome. All right. So I want to get into this because I think this is something that, in terms of like the biz dev idea and concept, this is the thing that, if I could go back to my younger self, I've gotten these kind of questions, whether it's on social media or in a networking meeting or just one-on-one. If you could go back to your younger self and you could change anything, there's so many things that I would have told my younger self not to do. But I think the most impactful thing, like whatever bad decision I made, whatever that outcome would be, I think the biggest thing that would have a really huge impact on outcomes in future would be saving money. And I loved how you talked about generational wealth. This idea of setting yourself up and setting your family up down the line. You mentioned that you're a dad. I got 4 kids at home here with my wife, and beyond my lofty ambitions outside in the world, job number 1 is making sure that my kids are set up for future success. And I think we talk about, this has been a year that while we've had pandemic, we've also had a larger understanding of some of the inequities that are going on, not only in our country, but across the world, but particularly when it comes to wealth inequality. And this is one of those things that, if folks are learning how to save money, invest wisely, use some of these tools, it is a game changer for communities and families. And I love that aspect of it, right? So if I could go back to my younger self, I'd tell myself, save at least 50% of your income and just let that grow. And so when you're talking about, keeping that wealth in there, because it's something that I don't think a lot of people understand, that what wealthy folks do a lot of times is their credit is really good. They have a lot of money sitting in the bank, but they also have things that, like stocks and investments, like maybe a 1031 exchange, where they can't really technically touch that money without some consequences, but they get to count it. It counts towards their credit. It counts towards their overall wealth. So as they're getting into the next property or taking the next loan to make a big investment, right? Because that's really where things pay off, is these investments, right? If I can purchase the property and charge you rent, if I can invest in this business and it earns multiple of what I paid in terms of profits and dividends, these are the things that really build wealth. And the way to get to that is having that capital in. And so I talk about in biz dev, when you're doing your business plan, making sure that not only are you building profit in, but you're building in another percentage for capital growth so that you have that money sitting in there so that your business can actually invest in itself to grow and bring in more profit down the line. So can you address that aspect of finance and not only how 1031 helps it, but how you kind of advise people to sort of organize their wealth?
Sure. Well, I've sort of moved away from the, being a wealth advisor. I tried that as well when I tried the other disciplines. So I got more into this space because, again, it's one dimensional, and I like focusing on this space because it's underserved. But as far as the financing, I don't get involved with financing on these deals particularly. The financing angle here is the LTV or loan to value. It's baked in. It's baked into, it hits my menu and it has a designated amount. So it's underwritten at the sponsor, again, the property management company that put the deal together. It's underwritten at that level. So anytime something from a financing standpoint hits me in the context of a 1031, it's because people have that target, right? That target that their CPA is saying, hey, this is the number we need to hit so that we minimize our tax consequence. That's as far as I get involved here. I don't deal with
the way I was going with it is, what would you tell your kids, right? What would you tell your family members on how to save their money, how to basically, in terms of life development, forget business development, but life development, how to make sure they're set up for future success? Because I think, when you talk about any kind of financial product, right, what you're really talking about is how do you set yourself up for the best possible outcome?
Right. Well, definitely, I would say what you said, Cam, is set some money aside. Definitely save more. I mean, if I could go back in time and change it for myself a little bit, the flashy cars, you don't really need them. They're not. So yeah, definitely save a little more, and then take advantage of vehicles that are like this. Educate yourself, because the knowledge really is power. And something as niche as this, like, a lot of people just don't know it's out there, but it's a tremendously powerful tool to build wealth. And what do they always say about real estate, right? God's not building any more of it. So it's a great investment. You mentioned before, it's like, it will go up. Sometimes it will go down. You can fail in real estate, sure, but 9 times out of 10, it's, if you go about it the right way and do your homework, again, God's not making any more. So take advantage of that. New York will always be New York, even though we have the exodus right now. People will come back.
Yeah, I look at it as this kind of thing of, the market, the advice around the stock market, as long as the stock market's been around, it's always gone up. Now, of course, it's crashed, right? And you can lose your shirt, but usually the folks that are losing their shirt are the folks that are the day traders. So I want to flip a property real fast because I'm looking for that quick money. I'm going to go buy a property for, I'm in Westchester, so everything's here is like, even like the worst fixer upper is like $300,000, in terms of like buying a house. So, I'm going to go buy something for $400,000. I'm going to flip it, put, $100,000 in it, and I'm going to go sell it for $700,000-800,000, right? I lose money when it sits on the market too long. I'm too over leveraged. I'm flipped up. Same thing, the stock market. I'm trying to, flip things quick. So I'm I'm leveraged out. I throw my money out into the pool. And because I'm looking for that short-term fix and the market goes down or crashes, suddenly I lose my shirt. But the long-term investor, and I know for myself, I've been putting money, I wish I was investing a lot earlier than when I started, but I started in 2017. And it's crazy that, I just put the money into companies that I think are going to do well over the next 10 years. And just about every single stock is up, since the time that I bought it. And it's just something that, when people get a really firm grasp and understanding of what investment can do for you, not only investment on the monetary level too, because I think this goes back to the educational hub piece of it, the idea of being honest and straightforward in terms of how you approach life, but the investment in yourself, right? And I love that. I was just watching a thing on Warren Buffett the other day. He was saying, imagine, and you probably heard this, right? Imagine you bought a car and it was the only car you ever had. How well would you take care of that car? Well, that's life. The car is your body. How well do you take care of your body? How much do you invest in your brain and yourself to make sure that you're able to take advantage of stuff? So when you said educate yourself, I mean, my mission in life is education and providing opportunity. You're in high school, you're in college, looking at all the different options available, seeking advice from people that have been there, done that, multiple sources. If you're in business, we're part of master networks, all this kind of stuff where we have access to people. So giving yourself the permission to go out and seek that advice. I know
And
1031.
it's hard, right? It's hard, right? There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of mercenaries out there selling all kinds of stuff, and it's like, who do you really believe? But there's still certain ironclad things that you can gravitate towards, like real estate. Real estate is almost always good. And then you mentioned from like the savings standpoint, like I personally invested in a whole life kitty policy for my firstborn daughter, and I'm about to get another one for my second daughter. So just little vehicles like this to build generational wealth that you can take advantage of. But again, it's not easy because there is a lot of noise out there. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love, your branding story is cutting through the noise, right? So people are hollering 1031 through the Rob, through the park at Rob, because he's cut through the noise. He's found a way to slice and dice and be in somebody's head as they're thinking about the one thing that he does, which is maybe a little bit obscure for a big percentage of the population. But when it comes up, who's the first person that they're going to think of? 1031 Rob.
Well, that's my goal, right, brothers? I hope that. And yes, people will forget what that attaches me to, what this whole 1031 IRS code thing is that I do. And as I said, somebody thought I was in radio. You're 1031 Rob. Somebody thought I did Halloween promotion. You're 1031 Rob. You must do Halloween stuff. I don't really care what you remember it for, but I will tell you this: it doesn't matter because you'll remember my story.
That's awesome. So what are the bigger goals and dreams are you looking to do down the road? I know you're a proud dad. I don't know if you got like any other kind of side hustles and things going on. Are there some other things that you care about in the world, and what are you trying to build so people that are hearing your story can help you get there?
Yeah, so I mean, aside from trying to build the best life possible for my girls, and it is an 80% estrogen household / 20% testosterone because we have my wife, 2 girls. So Madison is 2 and Emmeline is 6 months now, and we have an English bulldog, Lola, who's 9 years old. So it's all females all the time here. So besides trying to give them the best life I can possibly give them and be present. And by the way, I'm a positive guy, so I always say during this pandemic, I said it very early on, you have to find that silver lining wherever that sucker might be hiding. And I'll tell you one thing, Cam, is I got to spend a lot more time certainly than I would have if I was in my traditional, running around the boroughs, taking the ferry, going here, going there, coming home late. This allowed me to be a lot more effective. The Zoom, even though I miss my lunches and I miss getting together in person, it allowed me to spend a lot more time with my girls, which at the end of the day, family's everything to me. And the reason I do this whole 1031 Rob hustle is for them. It's not for me. So that's important. And then what else besides that? I'd like to be more philanthropic. We can all do a little more and give a little more. I'm a big believer in Wounded Warrior Project. I have a soft spot in my heart for that. And Tunnel to Towers is another organization I support, and Paws and Stripes, which gives dogs to damaged soldiers that come back that need emotional support. So yeah, I still tap into the military background, but I believe in those causes. I would always like to give a little more. But that's just why I keep pushing the throttle. And as Sean Lashley mentioned, you're an honest guy, you're a smart guy. We just need to make you a celebrity. So I'm going to have fun getting the word out there and telling my story, and that's it. And whatever business follows me, great. But I'm gonna keep forging ahead, whether it's 2020 or whatever's going on.
I love that. We're gonna help build this with you. I love the charities that you're involved with. I think those are amazing. Wounded Warrior is one that I particularly familiar with, and I love that. Talk to folks about how they can get in touch with you. I'm going to throw the QR code, which you can actually just hold your phone up, put the camera on, and that's all you need to do. Just put it on there, and you'll get to all of Rob's information. I know your LinkedIn address is down in the YouTube and off to the side on Facebook, so you can find that over there. But talk to us again about who are the people that you're trying to connect with. If if it's for 1031 exchanges, if it's on some of the maybe philanthropic side of things, that would be wonderful as well. I will throw the QR code up while you talk, and we'll end off things like this.
Sure. Yeah. So absolutely, the QR code is the best way to grab it. Cam knows that. I splash that thing up everywhere. Actually, when I'm on Zooms, and if I need to step away and grab a coffee or attend to one of the girls, that thing's up there. So I'm marketing either way, whether I'm here or not. I think it's a beautiful thing. But a great way to get in touch with me is either that QR code, or if you don't have your phone handy, my website's 1031rob.com. Very easy to remember. It has all my contact information there. On the socials, I am across all the socials. I use LinkedIn primarily for business, obviously, because it's LinkedIn. But on the others, Instagram, Facebook, I try to give that more of a human side to what I do, so you can see my girls, so you can see what I'm doing when I'm out there, when I'm not being 1031 Rob. But the look is the same. It's the same picture across all the socials, so you have the right guy. And always looking to help people. Look, if in a 1031 capacity, how do I find the right people? It's typically through real estate attorneys and CPAs and commercial brokers. They 9 times out of 10 will lead me to the end user. But at the end of the day, as I said, I like to be an informational hub. I'm a networking guy. I like being out there, and I like telling the story, and I like the branding that comes with it. So I just weave all those together, and I'm happy to help people in any way I can. Anybody that wants to grab a one-to-one to learn more about me or my business or anything else in my world, I'm happy to.
That's awesome. All right. So thank you so much for doing this, Rob.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate hearing about the girls. Good luck with the ladies in your household. I'm glad that you got some time this year. I think that's been the silver lining for a lot of people. I think there they are. Very nice. Very nice. So I think, in terms of real estate, just to throw a little bit more biz dev conversation on this, people, there's going to be a lot of transition, right? We are in that take advantage of the market kind of phase. So if you've built up some capital and maybe you got some property elsewhere and you want to invest in a place, maybe there's the price has gone down a little bit in the city. I definitely see that as a place where you could sort of take advantage of the bottom of the market. We're already at that point where there's a vaccine out. We're in December of 2020 for those that are watching this later. I'm going to love to play this back if we're anywhere close to right, in the future. But this idea that, now's probably a really good time if you can go and find that bargain, that deal. I can't think of a better time. We're gonna have some really good boom times here. I think we're gonna be into the history repeating itself, roaring 20s. 1918 was the Spanish flu pandemic. And we're sort of repeating that in the sense that 2020, we have a pandemic, roaring 20s are coming. I don't know if the Great Depression number 2 is coming after that, but if history is sort of something to speak, you have 2001 terrorist attacks in NYC, 2002, we have SARS, which is like a preliminary kind of thing to what we're going through now on a global scale, 2009 financial downturn. So something around the lines of every 10 years, there's some kind of crazy thing. So build up your war chest, make sure you're being really responsible, looking at investment products, reach out to your guy, 1031 Rob, especially if you're looking to do that kind of exchange, save on the capital gains tax, which means if you're able to save on the tax, not pay that money out to Uncle Sam, that means there's a little bit more money in your war chest to invest later. It's going to benefit you that much more, compounding interest, all the financial fundamentals. Really appreciate you all for paying attention to this, giving me your time. 1031 Rob, thank you for being here and being a guest on the show. Tell folks where they can reach you one more time and then say goodbye, folks, and we will play us out with the Biz Dev theme.
Thank you, Cam. Once again, 1031 Rob. You can reach me at 1031rob.com. Has all my contact information, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Best wishes for a happy and safe holiday season, and all the best in 2021. We deserve it. Let's go get it.
Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron